Thanks for joining. So this video is going to be making an enclosure for these Epipedobates Tricolor Cielito. Now the enclosure itself is going to be a Reptizoo 45-gallon 24 by 18 by 24 Paludarium. One of the first things you need to consider for a Paludarium is a pump housing. You've got to have somewhere to put your pump that's easily accessible if you need to clean it out or do maintenance, or if it unfortunately breaks down. Now for my housing, I kind of went an alternate route here and 3D printed mine. I've got a lot of this PETG clear, so I thought, why not? Now typically you'll see these made out of foam board or a PVC pipe or just anything that is big enough to fit a pump down into with holes in the bottom for water to go through. Because I had to print this in two pieces, I first used the hot glue gun just to hold things in place, and then went back over it with the silicone, as you can see here, just to hold everything in place permanently. Now, the reason I chose a Paludarium, not only because it's very aesthetically pleasing, but in situ, that's mostly where these frogs are found breeding. So I thought, why not have a nice enclosure that's both nice to look at and serves a purpose for the frogs. Unfortunately, I did have quite a bit of video of me putting up the panels and tubing and everything for the pump, but the filming gods were not on my side, and this is what I had to show for it. Now, moving along, you can see where the tubing comes out, and I'd already put up the first piece of driftwood for the background. Now here I'm just kind of making a pocket, filling in the big gap there with some foam and going over it with some silicone. Now, the silicone not only fills that gap, but it also waterproofs the cork bark panel. Since it does have holes in it, I don't want water going behind the water feature rather than over the front like it's supposed to. So once I had all that done, I went ahead and covered up the rest of the foam padding that was sticking out and covered it up with some cork bark pieces. Now, it's always a good idea to make sure that you're filling in gaps and stuff as you go, because a lot of times, as I've said in the past, you might end up making things really difficult on yourself to try to fix something later on. Because I was using 1-inch pieces of cork panel here, I decided to thicken it up a bit. That way when I went around to carve things later on, I wouldn't still be left with a 90-degree angle looking really unnatural. Now once the panel sat for a few hours, I just scored it with a utility knife and then just snapped it right off. While I was waiting for all the background pieces to completely cure and harden up, I went ahead and started getting ready for where I was going to place my stones for the water feature. Now here's another good idea, is to first place your stones. Don't secure anything in place. Make sure everything fits and looks the way you want it to. Then, as I'm doing here, just take the pieces down, try to remember where you put them, and then go ahead and secure them in place with silicone or whatever else you're going to use. As you may have guessed, this is not going to be a really big water feature. I really don't want something taking up too much space in here. Still want to leave room for planting and lots of room for the frogs to explore and do the things that frogs do. So when you do have a water feature like this, it's a good idea to make sure you go around and put silicone or whatever else it is that you're using, foam or whatnot, and make sure you're just covering up all the gaps where you don't want water to go. And once I was waiting for that to cure, I went around and started adding some more chunks of cork bark just so I could carve it out and give some more detail to the background rather than just flat panels that are carved. And now for the messy part. So I'm really glad I came up with this idea for this wheel. Well, I don't know if I'm the only person who came up with it, but I'm the only person I've seen using something like this. This sure makes the job go a lot faster, a lot easier. Not any cleaner, but still. I think in the future, once I get this design down, I'm probably going to use something a little more durable than the PETG that I use for that one, just because it does wear down over time and it will need replaced. Now that the carving was done, I could go ahead and start putting up the rest of the hardscape. Now that styrofoam block down there is just to hold the pieces up over the drainage layer. And I did not plan this when I picked out these pieces of wood, but that notch in the bottom just fit perfectly inside there. And once I had the pieces in place, I went ahead and secured them together. Now, this is a mistake I see a lot of people making when I see posts on Facebook or other forums. You've got to use dry cocoa core, dry substrate, whatever it is, when you're putting it on the silicone. If it's damp, it will not stick, and you're going to end up with a lot of bare patches on your background. And a few hours later, the easiest way to clean this stuff up is to just get a vacuum. Now that all my hardscape's in place and everything is cured and secure, I went around with scrap pieces of foam. I didn't feel like using up any of my big sheets, and just started building up the drainage layer. And once that was down, I went around with some 1/4-inch horticultural lava rock and just filled in the gaps. This is going to also be really important around the water feature, where you don't want animals getting up and behind there and getting possibly stuck. So just make sure that when you are laying it down, that you go ahead and, like I'm doing here, and push it down in the crevices and just make sure everything's packed in nice and tight. I really didn't have to rinse it down, but I did want to test out the waterfall. And unfortunately, I did not seal up the back of it very well at the base. And you can see here, the water does not flow over the rock. It flows behind the wood. Luckily, there is a fix for this where it does not require you to drain anything or dry it out. And that is JB Weld's 2-part epoxy. Now, this is water weld, so it is potable water safe. Now, the only problem is getting out of the tube, but this stuff is really great. Unfortunately, it is messy, so you do want to wear gloves like I'm wearing here. And you do want to try to avoid getting it on other areas around where you're working, because you're going to either have to chip it off or sand it off. Now, to use it, it's pretty simple. Pull off the chunk, the amount you think you're going to need, and just start kneading it together. Now you can see that the inside is a different color than the outside, so you just want to keep mixing it together until it's one consistent color. And now that I have mine mixed up, I'm going to go ahead and place it in the area I want it, and just start squeezing it into where I think the crevice is back there. Now, this stuff is safe for aquatic life. Reefers have been using it a long time, way before these other companies started making their own products. So the ultimate bonus for this is that it will cure underwater, completely submerged, so there's no wait time when you want to test out, as I'm about to do here, to make sure that you plugged up all the holes. Now it works just like I planned it. Time to move on with the rest of the project. And now I'm going to try out something I have not done before, but I have seen another YouTuber on the channel Biotope Gallery, which I will link in the description. If you've not seen his channel before, you are really missing out. But this is hard akadama. And make sure if you try this that you get the hard akadama and not the regular akadama. Hard akadama is fired at a higher temp for a longer time. So as the name implies, it's hard. It's not going to deteriorate and turn into mush immediately. Now, I'm not saying this stuff won't if you mess with it too much, but if it's undisturbed, it's going to stay just like it is and make a great planting substrate, as well as a great place for your isopods, springtails, whatever else you have living in the substrate. I forgot the name of this substrate, or this sand and gravel that I'm using. It was in an old aquarium I had, but I kept it around because I like the color of it. So here I'm just filling in the water feature, and go ahead and rinse the loose stuff away, let everything settle. All right, so this fern, I have no idea. It was in a grow out bin. It just popped out of nowhere. Now this stuff was, I couldn't believe I found this. This was on Etsy. I'll put the shop's name in here in the description, but this is cultivated hypnomoss. So it's not pulled out of the woods. It's not full of sticks and dirt and debris and bugs. Now he does have multiple varieties of moss. I did want to just try it out first, of course, because some of you know you never know what you're going to get when you buy from Etsy, eBay, anything like that. But this actually turned out to be exactly what was posted, so great find. So I do plan on having leaf litter in here, so I'm not going to do the entire bottom in moss. I'm just going to go around the water feature, just where it's going to be wet the most. But this stuff is, obviously you can tell it's thin, pulls apart, just piece everything together any way you want. All right, and this is another no ID fern that just popped up in a grow out bin. I'm not sure if it's the same as the smaller one, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. And this is Margravia melon, I think. Uh, Another piece just growing all throughout my grow out bins. I'm not normally a big fan of Hoyas, but I did see this and I kind of liked it. And after speaking to the owner of the shop I bought it at, which is Wicked Plant Company, and shout out to Katie for helping me pick this out, I thought I'd give it a shot and we'll see how it grows in here. This is another plant I've never used before, but it's obviously awesome. It's a blue oil fern. It should grow really nicely in here. Good high humidity. It's not going to be under highlight, so we'll see. I do have a few pieces of this cushion moss in the bin, so I thought I'd finally use it, put it in the corner. And just a tip here, sometimes you really need to trim off the bottom of it. Not too much though, because if you trim too much, it's just going to fall apart. But this is another great moss to use, fill in little areas. You just pull it apart and wedge it in, and it will grow over time. Unfortunately, this little guy was kind of buried a bit in the grow out bin, like everything else is, and it wasn't getting the best light, but it'll perk up. Now with these, since I did clean the roots off of all the soil, you want to make sure that it has good contact with whatever you're putting it into. And just a little pin here to hold that up, and it should start attaching itself to the background in no time. And here's a piece of Solanum Ecuador. I'll probably add a few more clippings of it. It's in all my enclosures, so I have an endless supply of it, which is nice because it's a really cool plant. And here's a plant I have not used for a while. This is the Biophytum Ecuador. I think I got this from Glassbox Tropicals. And since I had some more moss left over, I thought I'd add some more texture, some more color around the background. Now for the water feature, I went with some microsword I pulled out of the other Paludarium with the Tricolor Cielito. And this stuff in the other Paludarium, it's sticking really low to the ground. It really looks nice, great color, good texture on the leaves. Now a few pieces of Salvinia minima. Now this stuff does grow fast and will clog up your water feature really quick if you don't pull it out. So now to add the good guys. This is a cleanup crew, temperate springtails. I forgot to film putting in the isopods, but they're in there too, the dwarf whites. And now to top everything off with some live oak leaf litter. Hard to believe I'm almost at the end of my 25-gallon box I bought of leaf litter, but I am. And the last piece of hardscape I'm going to put in here is this piece of Malaysian driftwood, just kind of tie in the back to the front a bit. And that is it for the hardscape. Give everything a nice good rinse down, soak everything in. And now the last thing to take care of is this ugly filter foam pad sticking out. So I decided to grab some Java moss, put it over it. Since it's foam, it's going to stay wet. Hopefully, as the Java moss grows, it's going to start spreading out over the wood too. And I just picture it having water dripping off of it coming out of the waterfall area. So I think it's going to look really cool in a few months from now. And since I got a little bit left, I'll just throw a pinch down here. And hopefully I'll get the same effect as up top with it spreading out over the wood. And that's it for the planting and everything else. So thanks for watching. Unfortunately, like I showed in the beginning, the frogs are just not big enough to go in here yet. They're still way too small. They're still only eating springtails. They're not even big enough for melanogasters. But I'll make sure I get an update out there for you when I put the frogs in here. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed building it. If so, make sure you click that like button, subscribe, tell your friends, help the channel grow, and I'll see you next time. Bye.